Hello, learners. Welcome to our session today. I am your instructor, CPA Ringo Frederick. In our session today, I'll want us to learn about pivot table. And the data that you're going to use is the data that we had used earlier on. Remember, in our first class, we started by analyzing our data using traditional way, where we mentioned that as at the end of the day, you'll find that it is always very kind of interesting and easy to understand if the data has been prepared in a visualized way, in a pictorial format, whereby it will be very easy for you to explain your data very easily. So the same concept of analyzing our data, we can as well use a pivot table. We can as well use our pivot. We can as well use our pivot table. And the data that I will be using today, of course, it is the same data, which by now, or these videos for those students whom have never heard of pivot table. Where it's your first time, probably you are the least, or rather it's the first time probably you're experiencing the use of a pivot table. So you'll find that basically pivot table is an interactive way to quickly summarize large amounts of data, where we can use a pivot table to analyze numerical data in detail and also answer unanticipated questions about your data. So you'll find that the whole idea of a pivot table, it has been designed in a way to query large amounts of data in many user-friendly ways. So this data is what we are going to use to learn about pivot table and how useful pivot table is. So in this case, I want us to go straight and start working. So basically, this is our data. So how are we going to use our pivot table? The first thing is to learn how to insert our pivot table. It is always very easy for us to work it out. What you need to do, first of all, this is the data that I need to use. This is the data that we are using. So therefore, I'm going to select the whole of this data of ours. I'm going to select the whole of this data of ours. I'm going to select the whole of this data of ours, right? Of course, there are so many shortcuts that you can use to select them at once, but I want us to use the longer route, because we've said that analyzing data is not just about how good you are in keyboard shortcuts, but how good are you in internalizing your data. So after I've analyzed the data that I want to sort, in this case, what you need to do, you come to insert, then you can clearly see I'm having what? I'm having a pivot table. So I'll just click pivot table. You'll find that it has shown the select a table range, the range of data that I need to analyze. So in this case, of course, it has picked my data there. You can either work it out on the existing worksheet or a new worksheet. Because it's our first class, I want us to use what? New worksheet. So we do new worksheet. You'll find that now it will take me to a whole new worksheet. So the first thing that we need to analyze, my good students, is for us to analyze our data in terms of what? In terms of monthly, in terms of monthly sales, in terms of monthly sales. That is what I need us to do first of all, to analyze our data in terms of monthly sales. So how are we going to go about that? In our pivot table fields, you can see I'm having our items here, filters, columns, rows, values. I'll be explaining this more in details as we progress. So I want to analyze my data in terms of what? In terms of in terms of monthly sales, right? So you can see I'm having, it has picked, based on the range that you have selected, it has picked all the data that we will be having. So in this case, I'm having month, so I'm going to take my month in rows, which you'll clearly see here. It will automatically give me the rows, right? Then on this other case, I need the data of the same. So I need sales for monthly basis. Without hustling, without struggling, just using the simple knowledge of pivot table, I've already determined my total sales on a monthly on a monthly basis. In this case, I'll also wish to present this data in a pictorial format, right? So in this case, I'll come and select anywhere on the cell where I'm having the pivot rule. Then I'll come and insert. I want to insert pivot chart. So I'll just select pivot chart. Either way, I'm going to select, assuming I'm selecting these columns. So I'm going to select my column there, which in this case, you'll find that it will give me again all these details in terms of our cells, whereby we can of course rename this to be what? We can of course rename this to be our, we can of course rename this to be our monthly cells. So we are mentioning this to be our monthly cells. So talk about monthly. I'm having it as a monthly cells. Okay, I'm having it as a monthly cells. So that is what we are having there already. Within few minutes, I've already determined our monthly cells, both in terms of values as well as using the chart. So we can remove, we can hide the fill buttons on the chart, so that whenever I'll be preparing my dashboard, things will just be very easy. So we have that. Then the other key element that we need to do in this case, we can rename this sheet to be what? We can rename this sheet to be monthly cells. Let us rename it to be our monthly cells. So I'm having monthly cells. Then using the same rules, at this point, I will wish to determine our monthly sales in form of percentage, right? So what you need to do, you just left click, you carry this, then you do what? You do control. That will copy, that it will create a duplicate, that will create a duplicate. So the first instance we had it in terms of monthly sales. So you can go further, by the way, and analyze this data of ours. You can clearly see that some of our graphs are somehow squeezed. So what you can do, I'll pick my graph, then I right click, I'll come and format data series. So I need them to be kind of broad, to be at least broad enough. I'll go to gap width. You'll see that my data has done what? My data, or rather our graph, has kind of increased in a way. Okay. Then I'll also need to add some values here, whereby I need to add the labels indicating that each graph represents how much. So we add data labels, and I'm going to add data labels, so that at this point I'll clearly see that January my total sales was 34,000, February my total sales was 30,000, March 7,100, April like that. So basically, this is our graph in terms of our value cells. We've created another sheet here, which you can term this sheet as what? Monthly sales percentage. Monthly sales percentage. Monthly sales percentage. So monthly sales percentage, I need this sheet, or rather our data, to be represented in terms of percentage. So what you're going to do, I'll just right click. Then in this case, I need to show values as grand total of our percentage. So whereby you'll find that clearly I can see that in our cell, or rather in each month, I'll be able to determine it, I'll be able to analyze it in form of what? Percentage of our total sales. Whereby you can make it more interesting and determine these sales represents what. But first of all, maybe let me show you the first thing. You can do this, whereby you add your cells in our values, which will give me sum of sales value too. Then this one, you can decide to have it now in form of percentage of the grand total, where this data, you can clearly see, so this is the same thing that we have done on the first sheet, but this case you can clearly see I'm having 34,000 in January, which represents 6.84% of our annual turnover. February, I'm having 30,000. I'm having 30,300, which basically here represents 6.10 of our annual turnover. The same will apply with April and May, which represents basically our annual percentage of our annual turnover. Because I'm interested only with the percentage, we can kind of remove that by just dragging it out for me to remain with percentage, because our focus is that I want this graph in form of percentage. So having that case, the same concept will apply. Let me prepare this in terms of this is monthly sales. You can have it now percentage. You can have it now as a what? Percentage. Okay. Then we can add our data values there. We add, of course, our labels representing the percentages. So we add labels representing our percentages. And also I can make it more interesting by doing what? First of all, you can remove that for the purpose of our dashboard. I can come and, of course, increase the bars so that we have it maybe up to that point. Yeah, they look neat. We can go ahead and change at this point the fill, because we had blue the other time. This time round we can decide to use like red, or yeah, we can decide to use that color, right? So at this point, at least my data is kind of now being represented in a manner that at least I'm kind of I'm loving it, right? So that is in terms of percentage sales. So we've done with the first two. I need to do for quarter. Quarterly, the same concept will apply. Left click, then we carry it, then I do what? I control. So in that case, I've just created a duplicate again. On this duplicate of mine, we want to have it as a quarterly sales, right? We can have it, you can rename this to be quarterly sales, quarterly sales, where in this case, now I need my values in terms of quarterly sales. So what we can do, of course, I can return this to our values. In this case, we can return the sum, where I'm going to take my sales there. Of course, in this case, I don't need it in form of percentage, so I'll remove the percentage. Now we want quarterly basis. So for month, I'm going to remove month. I take quarter on our rows, which in this case, it will summarize for me automatically. Just see how easy it is, right? Within a very short period of time, I can be able to have my data clear here. So in this case, I can also decide, like, let us change the fill. We have maybe this time around, we can decide to go with red will work. Then, of course, red is always very shouting, right? I can also decide to add our data values there on top, so that I'll be able to understand and know that in the month of, in quarter one, this was our total sales. In quarter two, that was our total sales. In quarter three, quarter four, like that. The same concept, I can do it. I can give it a percentage value to indicate, like quarter one, what was the percentage of our total? Quarter two, what was the percentage of our total? I can also decide to use it in form of percentage. We can also decide to use what? You can also decide probably to use maybe in this case I can come and say that I want a pie chart. Now, probably I want to have a pie chart. So basically, I can have a pie chart there. You see, we can select either way that we wish to have. Pie chart, you can have graphs like that, right? So once we have that, we can also decide like, okay, we have for monthly, we have in quarterly sales. Can we do also for daily sales? Yeah, we can do for daily sales. So the same case, I know right now whenever I'll be talking of duplicate, you know how to work it out. So I'm going to duplicate this, left click there, and I've duplicated my data. So this time round, I want it on a daily basis. On a daily basis, of course, what I'm going to do, I'll just remove this quarter on my row. Then I select daily basis there. Automatically it will give me that. Automatically it will give me that. Where I can decide that probably this time round I want to use another series. So in this case, you can clearly see I'm having all Sundays, these were the total. All Mondays, these were total. Tuesday, these were totals. Maybe at this point round, maybe I want to use what? Line, right? Line graph. Whereby I can come and select, I want to use, say, like line. So I'm having it at that point. I can customize it the way I need. First of all, I can hide my values there for the purpose of our dashboard, right? So basically this is what you're having. I can decide also to change the fill of this. Maybe you can have it as a green or a purple, whichever fill that we will wish to select, right? So basically once we have that data of ours there, once we have this data of ours here, we can decide to, of course that is not fill, sorry, we can no fill, outline, we can have like and select an outline that we've not used, and this also shouting, is purple shouting somehow, right? Can leave it at that point. So let me also determine, we add our data values, data labels to indicate that at least each day, how much will you be having? Basically, this is what you're having. This is what you're having. So we can decide to have this as what? These are weekly sales. We can decide to have this as our weekly sales. I think here we can also rename it to be our weekly sales. Okay. Of course, quarter two. Quarterly sales, we have it there, where in this case you can change this to be our quarterly sales, right? Talk about quarterly sales. Yeah, we're having our data there, you're having our data. Now, the most interesting bit that I'll also want us to learn is we can create a dashboard. Imagine with these few details, we can go ahead and create our dashboard, which in this case, the whole idea is about preparing data visualization. That's what that's what we want to achieve, right? In a manner that I can present my huge data in a very small, in a very understandable way that each person can always tend to do, can always tend to follow. So in this case, let me add a new sheet here, whereby this new sheet, we can term it as a dashboard. We can call it as a dashboard, okay? To make it more interesting, it's just a matter of making sure that our data is somehow neat, somehow presentable, right? We can fill in with the gray color. So what we need to insert here, my good students, is basically the graphs that we had, right? The graphs that we were using earlier on. So basically, these are what I want us to do. We copy and paste the data that we are having. Like the first case, maybe I can select this graph of ours. We have it in our sheet dashboard here, where I'll be having it as that. Then maybe you can also come and select our, we had monthly sales, monthly percentage. We select our monthly percentage graph. So basically I'll just be having my graph, copy. I come and paste it here in our dashboard. Then we can also have what? Our quarterly sales, which we had prepared. So I'll take my quarterly sales. On my dashboard, we have it there. We can also select our weekly sales. We have it here, our weekly sales. I'll be having it at that point. Now, to make it more interesting, guys, maybe let us zoom out so that at least it can give us more space on this end. Remember, this is the original data. Look at this case. This was our original data here. This was our original data here, right? From this boring, let me use boring data. From this boring data to this pictorial presentation, surely, look at how neat it is, right? So in this case, I want now maybe to have a form of a very simple dashboard. I want to have a form of a very simple dashboard, and this is how we can go about it. So in this case, what you do, you just come and insert. Then I want to insert a slicer. Slicer, of course, my data mode. In this case, first of all, let me select that. I want to insert my slicer. Maybe I want to analyze this data of ours in terms of sales, day, and month, and quarterly, right? So in this case, we are having day, month, and quarter, right? So in this case, you'll find, I want you to see how these things are very simple. And if you join Mdarasa classes, these are some of the things that you'll always be using. You know, like being an accountant is just not just being an accountant, right? But you are an accountant with more information, something that can add value even in your CV, right? Something that can add value in your CV. So basically, this is our data, and I'm creating our dashboard here, whereby going about that will be very simple. First of all, I need to link all these report connections. I need to link all these report connections. I'll be explaining about report connections later on as you also continue with our classes. So basically, this is what I'm having. Of course, I can also report connections here. Okay. Now, see the magic, right? From our data that you are having, that data that was like kind of maybe a lot of info, which in this case, if you are giving to someone, someone will be bored. Look at this case. I want to see this magic. I want to determine my days sales. In this case, how will you go about it? I just do what? If I click Sunday, look at what is happening. Look at here. Look at what is happening. I need my sales report for Sundays only. See, I'll be having that ideally. Everything is kind of, everything is being adjusted. I need, say, this on a Monday basis. Everything will just adjust itself, and I can be able to tell that maybe on Sundays, if at all, in this case, we're looking at Mondays. Mondays, it seems that in October, we had very higher sales on Monday. What normally happens on October? Why were we having all these sales in October? In that case, you'll find that with analyzing that, in that case, it will be able to enable us to also conduct maybe aspect of our SWOT analysis. This is our strength. October probably is where we normally tend to apply all our strength. That's why we're having these sales and so many other analyses that you can use. So you can clear the filter. I need, say, data for quarter one. Quarter one, if I click quarter one, clearly you'll see that I'll be having the data now for quarter one on a dashboard. This is a dashboard that we have prepared in a very simple way. Quarter one, I can be able to see that January, this is what we're having, meaning that in quarter one, January is when we made a lot of sales. Talk about followed by Feb, then March. Why did we have less sales in March? What normally happens in March that I'm having less sales? Talk about monthly sales percentage. Of course, January will give us a higher percentage because it is also the value. That is what I'm having. In this case, I'll also want to combine it with quarter two. Just control, then also select, of course, quarter two as well. So quarter two, Now I'm selecting the data for quarter 1 and quarter 2, where in this case you'll see that quarter 1 and 2, if I compare the two data, you receive quarter 2 I had a lot of sales, and on this quarter 2 it is May that I had a lot of sales. What normally happens in our business in May that we're having higher sales? How can we use strength that we are having? What is a competitive advantage that normally tend to apply in May that you're having higher sales, right? So these are, you see, like you can just explain this to a person who even don't know mathematics or computations clearly, and majorly for investors, which they can easily follow. And of course, you can easily explain to them using the dashboard that we just created using what? Pivot table. So in this case, my good students, to have more exciting classes on data analysis, I can request you to join Mdarasa. You can always reach us on 0708 068 851. We'll be here to assist you. And data analysis is not only about shortcuts in Excel. Any other person can learn about shortcuts in Excel. But what about in-depth analysis? What about in-depth analysis? This is what we normally tend to do as Mdarasa. Remember, data analysis is not only for CPA students, but any other person doing business, any other person who is in a job market can always tend to use the knowledge of data analysis to prepare to do a data visualization as what we've done here. So at this point, guys, thank you so much. I was very excited to have you here. Thank you so much, and let us meet in our next session. Thank you, guys. Have a nice time.